We were on a scene, we were in the car together, and it was at a cannabis factory, and it was a big cannabis factory, and the intelligence was that potentially there was going to be some offenders coming back. When you're in the middle of night shifts, you start to see things a little bit. I'm in the car, I'm in the driver's seat, and we see some lights, and I thought, they've turned up. So I put it in reverse, and instead of me looking in my mirror, I think I was that disorientated because it was probably 3 o'clock in the morning. I reversed it straight into a bridge, and it was the security for their building. And I just contacted my inspector and I said, look, this is what I've done. As with anything in the police, a bit of honesty goes a long way. So, I completely wrote the car off, by the way. It was a complete write-off.
Welcome to the Pocket Sergeant podcast. Today's guest is Ian Cook, founder of Blue Light Lifestyle, former police officer, and now a wellbeing champion for the emergency services. Ian spent 18 years in policing, but recently he made a difficult decision to resign, not because he wanted to, but because the system made it impossible to stay. Today we're going to explore his journey from working the front line and to building a business with over 53,000 followers. Ian, welcome to the podcast.
Mate, thank you very much for having me on. Pleasure to be here. Really looking forward to it.
So let's get back to the very beginning. What first drew you to policing in the first place, and what were those early years like?
My journey into policing was a bit of an odd one. It never was the goal. I went to uni, did a degree in sports coaching and nutrition, was going to go into physiotherapy, and in 2007 there was a massive push for policing, and my uncle was a police officer, and he said, why don't you give it a go? And I was like, okay. I'd always liked the idea of policing but never really thought about it. Applied and managed to get in, and then the journey started, and for the first probably 3 years of my police career, if I'm going to be honest with you, I felt like I wanted to leave every single day. Felt like an absolute imposter.
Oh, right.
Yeah, absolute imposter every single day. I was 21. I was 9 stone. I wasn't comfortable in my own skin. I didn't feel like I'd got enough experience, and I felt like I was playing at the role a little bit. And you know, I always talk about imposter syndrome now massively because I'm a big believer in it. I think it's something that holds people back from really making a lot of progress in every aspect of life. But it was something that really held me back in policing massively.
That's really interesting. You served for about 18 years. What roles did you have during that time?
So I did neighbourhood policing, I did response policing, I did offender managing, for only a small period of time, and tutoring, and then traffic officer roads policing for 7 years. So
a decent variation, really.
Yeah, I think as a PC, I did everything that I would have wanted to do. My goal at the moment that I joined the job was roads policing. That's where I wanted to be. That was my passion. That was what I suppose what happened was that I looked at TV shows and saw the police pursuits and stuff like that, and that had got my mind racing that that's what policing is. You very quickly realise it's not. It's a very small part of the job, but that's what kind of got my juices flowing for that. But I had to wait, nearly 10 years for me to get on there.
Do you have any funny or outrageous policing stories that you can share?
Oh yeah, I've got a few. I mean, one of the best ones was the time that I actually decided, we were on a scene. I was on a scene with who actually is one of my best pals now. And we were in the car together. It was we were on it all night, and it was at a cannabis factory in, believe it or not, a factory. It was a big cannabis factory. And the intelligence was that potentially there was going to be some offenders coming back to collect it. That's why we've got a double crew car on it. So, as you know, when you're in the middle of night shifts, you start to see things a little bit. And I'm in the car, I'm in the driver's seat, and we see some lights come, and I thought, they've turned up. So I put it in reverse to go back, and instead of me looking in my mirror, I think I was that disorientated because it was probably 3 o'clock in the morning. I reversed it straight into a bridge. Wrote the car off completely, and I got out thinking, I'll sort that out in a minute. and it was the security for their building.
Oh, never.
Turn back up. So I wrote a car off completely for nothing, but it was in the days, to be honest. I just contacted my inspector. I mean, I completely wrote the car off, by the way. It was a complete write-off. And I just contacted my inspector and I said, look, this is what I've done. And as with anything in the police, a bit of honesty goes a long way. And nothing happened. I was able to drive the car back. I mean, it should never have been on the road in a million years, but I drove it back. Parked it up, never heard anything of it ever again.
That's brilliant. Not for the force, losing a car. What did security say?
Well, we didn't even expect them to be coming back. That was the reason why I think we got our juices going, thinking, oh, they're back, that they're here to come and take the cannabis. And he just literally turned up and he said, oh, well, we didn't realise this was happening. We don't really normally come and look at this security, this factory, but we knew that something was going on, so we thought we'd come and have a look. And I was like, oh, they haven't even told anybody. They've just turned up. But I mean, I didn't damage the bridge. I mean, that's one thing I will say to everybody listening. If you go into a bridge, the bridge does not get damaged, but the car definitely does.
Have you got any memorable jobs that stick with you from traffic? Any memorable pursuits or anything like that? Yeah,
I mean, I've had quite a few over the years whereby I've looked back and I've thought, oh, God. The one thing I'll say about traffic is everyone talks about firearms probably being the most dangerous place in policing. In my opinion, it's not. I would put traffic and roads policing officers at the actual forefront of danger every single day. Because if you get it wrong in a pursuit, it's on you. And they happen all the time. Well, in the force that I was in, West Mids, pursuits are very, very normal. They're not something that doesn't happen. They happen every single day. So the one for me was I just passed my advanced course and I probably was maybe a little bit overconfident, but also a little bit nervous at the same time. So you've got these two things going on. You want to try and prove yourself. And I was with a lad that had joined me on traffic, so we both just passed our advanced course. I was driving and we had a pursuit down the motorway. We weren't lead car, we were second car. And this pursuit was 145, 150 miles an hour, in and out of traffic, high risk on the hard shoulder, etc. And I remember I was driving along and you quickly realise that if you make a mistake, then it's not just you that's probably going to die. You're also talking to the person that's next to you as well. So you've got a lot of responsibility. And as I'm driving, the lad that I was with, his name Lee, he looked at me and he said, mate, is there anything that I can do? And I was that hot that I just said to him, mate, just put the aircon on for me. And the aircon was blowing in my face and we're going along. And as we are approaching this junction, I am that fixated on the fact that I've got to keep control of this car. I didn't realise that the whole pursuit had got off at the slip road. And I went past, and then Lee didn't either, and we both looked at each other and I went, so I had to buy cakes for that.
Cake offence.
Yeah, but that was like literally a couple of weeks into me passing my advanced course and thinking, you want to try and make an impression, and you very quickly realise that there's so many different factors to traffic, and I very quickly realised that it isn't about being fast, it's actually about being safe and being in control. And sometimes you learn that the hard way. I was very fortunate, I never actually crashed I know I crashed into a wall, but when I was on traffic, I never crashed a traffic vehicle. I've done tactical contact a couple of times on motorways, wrong way, going down a motorway. I've done that a couple of times, and that's obviously quite a difficult decision to make because you have to kind of weigh up what the necessity is, but you've got to also look at the danger to the public, and that's something that was quite a big decision. I did that like 2 or 3 times. I've made some bad decisions in pursuits as well, going the wrong way down roads, with a little bit of red mist. Before you know it, you're going contraflow with them, and you're thinking, I shouldn't really be here. But that's all part of the learning curve, isn't it? And it's only by the grace of God that these things don't go wrong sometimes.
Absolutely. You spent quite a long time in policing. Was there a moment when you felt policing had started to change and not necessarily for the better?
I mean, personally, yes. I mean, for me, one of the biggest changes was the moment they reintroduced workloads to response officers. For me, as a member of the public, what I want to be able to do is I want to know that when you ring 999 or you ring for assistance from the police, that they're going to be there. And when you start adding workloads to already what is a stressful job and a challenging job, I think what you do is you take officers off the street and you create undue stress on them. And it's no surprise that the burnout and the sickness has gone through the roof when you reintroduce workloads to what is probably one of the most challenging roles in policing. Personally, it changed for me when I was on my paternity leave with my first boy 11 years ago now. One of the nicest times of your life. And I got a phone call from my then inspector, who I was about a week after he was born, and the message that I got, I thought it was going to be, congratulations on how's things going, etc. And it was, you've got a complaint, it's a serious complaint, and it could be job losing. I'll let you know when you come back what it's all about. Yeah.
That's unreal.
On my paternity leave. So that moment there was, I thought I'd let my family down. I didn't know what the complaint was. And even though you know you've done nothing wrong, you can sit there and you can overthink everything.
Absolutely.
You know, it doesn't matter how confident you are. We all know what policing's like. So completely ruined my paternity leave, went back, got told about the complaint. I knew I'd done nothing wrong. 18 months this complaint went on for, and it got NFA'd. And you kind of sit there and you realise very quickly that the job doesn't do well-being very well, doesn't do welfare very well. And when you're in one of the nicest periods of your life, whereby you should be celebrating and enjoying every moment, the job took that away from me a little bit. And that was something, for me, the job changed that moment. My drive to want to kind of be that best officer that I ever wanted to be. I thought, you know what, if that's the way that you're going to treat me, then I then saw it as a job rather than, up until that point, it had been something that if someone probably cut me open, I'd probably bleed blue, you know. But then from there, you kind of take a little bit of a step back and realise that, I know it's a bit of a cliche, but you're a number, aren't you? You're a number in a big system.
Yeah, and you touched briefly on welfare and well-being there. How did you personally manage your own well-being whilst working long shifts and dealing with the pressure?
Not very well at the start. At the start of my career, being young, not really having much life experience, trying to fit into a job that you probably don't feel that maybe you deserve to be, and that's how I felt. I was really, really struggling. Eating habits were extremely poor, mainly because I felt really insecure about my weight, and I didn't really, even though despite doing nutrition, despite doing coaching, it's not like being in the job. The job takes up dealing with nights, late, super noon, all these different things that you have to deal with. Then the pressure, sleep all over the place, energy in the gutter. And before you know it, you've fallen into the habits of, well, I'll have that dirty refs. Or my night shift eating was genuinely with a lad called Graham, brilliant officer. But every single night shift, he was my permanent partner on response, and we used to have a 500 gram packet of flapjack and a litre of orange Lucozade. That was and then I wondered why I couldn't go to sleep. You know, and you kind of sit there and you realise that the job very quickly takes a lot from you. I wasn't looking after myself. My sleep was poor, and I was and I couldn't switch off. That was my big thing. I couldn't, and I'm really big on it inside the Burnout lifestyle now, whereby we will try and help people massively create that work-life balance. I had none. And it was only really when I met my wife, well, probably about like 4 years into the job that really changed my perspective on things, because you very quickly realise there's more to life than being a police officer. But at the time, I had nothing else. I wanted to be the best police officer that I could be. I wanted to impress people. I wanted people to kind of, I suppose, accept me into it. It felt like a family when I joined. And again, that's a bit of a cliche, but it genuinely did. It felt like everyone was looking after each other. And I wanted to be a part of that. And there was a lot of experience around me, and it really did make me kind of really question everything. And I couldn't cope with it. I was too inexperienced. I was probably too young, and I was still living at home. So I had excess kind of money. I didn't really have anything else in my life. So my welfare, my well-being was probably at the bottom of the pile, and the job was at the top. And that was one of my biggest mistakes.
3 years ago, around 3 years ago, you started Blue Light Lifestyle. What was the catalyst for launching that?
Probably me wanting more out my life and realising that the job wasn't giving me everything that I wanted. I'd achieved what I wanted to in terms of getting on traffic. I had no kind of thought process of promotion. And we were on holiday, and my wife, she's been brilliant with me, and she's always very honest, and she just looked at me on holiday and she said, "You need more, because you're kind of coasting a little bit here. Your rest days, you're doing nothing, and you need to kind of get a passion." And she was right. And sometimes when you need somebody else to tell you what you need to do, that was exactly the moment for me. So I knew that I'd managed over the past probably 5-6 years prior to that to gain a lot of control in my life. I'd got a great structure. I'd built a great routine. I didn't miss a beat in terms of my nutrition. Was every week perfect? Of course not, but my consistency was good. People were coming to me and asking me to help. Even before Blue Light Lifestyle, asking me how I was doing certain things. I got a great kind of work-life balance in terms of the job wasn't taking over, but I hadn't got enough and I wanted more. So I came off that holiday and I took out a £9,000 business loan. I hadn't got any money, and I decided to put it into creating Blue Light Lifestyle. And the idea was that I wanted to help officers with their health, their well-being. I knew that it wasn't being done very well in the force that I was in, and from having friends across the country who'd maybe moved to different forces, I also knew that it wasn't going very well elsewhere either. So I started up a private Facebook group. Big mistake, because I didn't realise that once you started a private group in Facebook, you couldn't share anything. So very quickly I'd kind of outgrew that. I couldn't get the message out, but I grew it to 1,000 followers inside the private group. But I wanted more. I was producing content, doing various different things, and it was getting good traction. People were saying, it's really helping. But I wasn't kind of growing the way that I wanted. I knew that I got a message that I wanted to kind of get out there, and the only place that I could really do it was probably Instagram, but it scared the life out of me. Just spoke about imposter syndrome. I thought, if I go on Instagram, I'm going to get destroyed at work. I was in a very strong team at the time, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to have to bring social media cakes in probably every week. But I knew that if I wanted to get to where I wanted to be, I needed to have bigger reach. The intention was never to put like silly hats on or do reels. It was never that. It was just to put posts out to a larger audience. That's what it was initially. But then when you start to learn about social media, you realise to get reach, you need to probably go with what's working. And what was working at the time was reels. So I used an element of that business loan to pay for a course, to learn how to kind of get traction on social media. And the first thing that the guy did for me, his name's Simon, he's got a business that builds social media followings, and he said to me, "Have you got a police hat?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, of course I have."
What's his business name?
His name is Simon Strong Media. He builds businesses on social media, basically shows you how to build traction, how to build a personal brand, essentially.
Okay, now I thought we'd drop his name and his business in because he's obviously done wonders for you.
Yeah.
So going back to that point, he asked if you got a police hat.
Yeah.
And then where did you go from there?
Well, he said to me, people buy people. And he was absolutely right. You can have the best brand or product in the world, but if people don't believe in you, they won't buy it. The reason why Tesla is doing so well is because Elon Musk is probably the head of it. If you remove Elon Musk from Tesla, will it do as well? I probably don't think it would. So he said, you need to be relatable. He said, do stuff that police officers and emergency service workers are going to go, oh yeah, I can get behind that a little bit. Yeah, that's me. I've done that. And the moment that I did it, it kind of started to grow. And I went from 650 followers, and then in the past probably 2 years, I've gone from 650 to 54,000. And that genuinely is down to him, really, creating relatability. I was very nervous. The imposter syndrome was there. The first time that I did a reel like that, I thought, oh my God, I'm probably going to get absolutely destroyed here. But it was really bizarre actually, because I was getting people coming up to me saying, I can really relate to that. That really made me think. And then what really happened was that the relatable reels were bringing people onto the page, and then I could really start to talk about the real message, which was the health and the well-being and the welfare of officers.
What exactly is it that you offer officers and customers generally at the moment? I know we've talked about nutrition and well-being, but what exactly is it? What does that mean?
So, well-being, I think, is a word that gets thrown out there, and it can mean a multitude of different things. But for me, it's a little bit all-encompassing. What we tend to find is that officers right across the country are struggling for an element of control in their lives. They haven't got any structure or routine, and the job is eating them alive. And the one thing that we offer inside Blue Dot Lifestyle is our one-to-one program, which is where we get officers and other emergency service workers as well to come in, and we build their lifestyle around their shifts rather than them trying to do it the other way, whereby the shifts are dictating what they're doing. We look at their nutrition, their sleep, their recovery, their energy. We look at their structure, their routine, help them build sustainable plans around their lifestyle outside the job, but also inside the job. We've got our own app whereby we can help people with their accountability. Inside our community at the minute, we've got 160 emergency service workers working with us one-to-one. It's not just me anymore, so I haven't got 160 people. I'd burn out. We've got a team of coaches, and it's a great place to be. One big thing that I think that is missing is community. To be around like-minded people that have kind of experienced or experiencing what you've experienced, sharing your wins, sharing your challenges, it makes it feel that you're not alone. We do weekly educational sessions inside the group. We've got a psychological therapist inside the program, so we talk about like emotional eating, comfort eating, work-life balance, stress, anxiety, and we work completely one-to-one with people. So if you've got a question, we don't ask you to wait a week to get back to us. We want you to contact us. We want you to be communicating and talking to us. And it's kind of built on that, really. We help you with every aspect of the job. It's not just a sticky plaster whereby we send out a spreadsheet with a bit of nutrition on, a meal plan and a generic training program that anybody could kind of get. It's got to be built around you, your lifestyle and what your shifts look like.
Okay. Back in August 2022, the Police Federation even featured your work. How did that recognition feel?
Well, it feels great that, what you can kind of do is you can reach a lot of people, when the Federation kind of get on board. Do I think that the Federation are kind of in a position whereby they do enough? Probably not. if I'm going to be honest, and that's not a case of me saying that it should be my work. I'm talking about there are some really great people in policing who are doing similar work to what I'm doing, who have got a great message. And I think federations could really push it a hell of a lot more, not just my work, everybody's, because we all pay our subs and we all pay into it. And I just think a real small investment, or even just doing some webinars, could really make a real big difference. I don't know, I never got any feedback on how that was kind of taken, to be honest, from the Federation. I was fortunate to kind of go into the West Mids Federation and I've put some stuff out, and again, I haven't had the feedback from that, so I don't know whether it was well received or whether it didn't hit the mark. And I think that's what we need. As with anything, I think, we can have great intentions of doing stuff, but I think what you need to be able to do is get some feedback to know whether it's hitting the mark or not. And that's what I think is missing. Having some tangible feedback to say what's working and what's not.
Going back to the social media aspect, you've had over 6.5 million interactions on Instagram alone. What kind of messages are you getting from officers that are seeing these reels and content, and those that are obviously part of your community?
Well, the feedback has been absolutely incredible. I've been absolutely blown away, and it really does. I suppose sometimes make me extremely grateful, because I kind of look at myself and I think I'm a lad from Walsall in the West Midlands, and why would anyone want to listen to what I'm saying? And I think that's the imposter syndrome again, to be honest, whereby you kind of doubt your own message sometimes. But the message that I get from people is that it helps, which is great, and that it's helping them maybe put a different perspective on their police career and maybe their life in general. What I get the messages from the reels is that it puts a smile on people's faces. The one thing that I wanted was people to be able to share it with the colleagues and just have a little bit of a laugh. Policing's very serious, I think. And I think policing in general is scared to death of social media. They don't use it enough for good. Can it be a place whereby it can be negative? Yes, 1,000,000%. But I also think it can be a place of good. And if my reels can put a smile on somebody's face when they've had a really tough day or they've dealt with something that's kind of knocked them a little bit, then for me, that's the win. And that's the kind of feedback that I've kind of got. I haven't really got negativity, which is wonderful, but also surprising probably at the same time.
I mean, a lot of the reels have made me laugh, to be fair, but not everybody in policing appreciated these reels, did they? A chief inspector raised concerns. What happened there? What happened?
Yeah, so, I mean, over the probably 3.5 years of me probably 2.5 years on Instagram producing reels and content and stuff, I only ever had one complaint that I'm aware of that ever came through professional standards, which was from a firefighter, believe it or not, who didn't like the fact that I was doing content relating to firefighters. But the actual, genuinely, the feedback I've got from firefighters has been amazing, which has been brilliant. But you can't please everybody. But one chief inspector raised the fact that they didn't believe that a serving police officer should be raising the issues that I was raising, not necessarily around my reels, but also my content, which then kind of started a series of events whereby professional standards then looked at my business interest, which had been in place for 3.5 years, by the way, and had never ever been brought up or questioned. And before you know it, the idea was for me to go on a career break, but it never transpired for that, because they asked me to reevaluate my business interest, which would then stop me doing my career break. So one email then created a chain of events whereby it kind of made it very difficult for me to stay in policing. Is it a regret that I resigned? Not massively, because I kind of got to a position where I think I transitioned enough to kind of say that I was okay with leaving policing. Do I feel that the kind of thoughts of one person should impact my police career the way that it did or impact other people's opinion on it? No, because you can't please everybody in life, and just because one person doesn't agree with it doesn't mean that it's not having a positive impact on other people. And I think that's where policing sometimes can go a little bit wrong. We worry about maybe the minority where we should be worrying about the majority.
And I guess with something like this and something like what you've produced, really, what should have happened was, I think the force should have perhaps embraced what you were doing to get more people on board, rather than perceive it as like a negative thing. What do you think was the main motivation behind that chief inspector doing what they did?
Well, I would imagine they probably just don't like the mirror being held up. I think the police forces in general don't like it. And what we perceive policing to be is we've always got to be positive. We've always got to try and show us in this like amazing light. And the reality that you and I know, and the people that are probably listening, is that that's not the case. And why we think that we've got to keep saying that everything's great when it's not, I'll never know. Because one, it's not fair on the officers that are doing it every day, and it's not fair on the staff that are there every day who are experiencing the problems, but it's also not fair on the people that are coming into the job either, because it's like having a restaurant that's portraying themselves as a Michelin star, and you go in and you quickly realise that the food's terrible and the service is terrible, and guess what? People leave. And that's what's happening with police retention and in general, because we try to portray it as like everything's rosy, and it's not. And I genuinely believe that what tends to happen is when you have somebody that's willing to put their head above the parapet and say these things, you will get certain aspects of the job that will get a bit uneasy about it, and you may get, some pushback, and that's unfortunately what's happened. Do I think it's the right thing to do in terms of still highlighting it? Yeah, 100%. Because we talk about, the police are led by code of ethics, honesty, integrity. And when somebody is being honest, we kind of try and silence it a little bit. And that seems to me to go completely against what we portray in the police.
How did it feel walking away from a career that you expected to probably stay in for life?
Probably not as difficult as what it may well have been if I didn't have Blue Light Lifestyle. If I didn't have something to walk away to that I knew could make me happy, could also give me the chance to stay within policing and have a positive impact and help police officers, I would think I would struggle. I think I would have missed it massively. But over the past probably 18 months, I have transitioned. I went part-time. And the one thing I don't want this to be is I don't want people to think that I'm going to try and be negative about the way that West Midlands or policing in general has treated me. I've had some amazing times, and I've had the pleasure of working under some really amazing police leaders as well. My inspector and my chief inspector are actually really, really good. And without their support, do I think Blue Light Lifestyle probably would have grown the way that it has and been allowed to grow the way that it has? Probably not. So... And they were very encouraging for me to have and transition my hours down. And that enabled me to kind of, I suppose, gradually accept the fact that maybe my time in policing was coming to an end. So when the career break didn't happen, despite it kind of feeling like it was going to, and kind of being asked to go and redo the business interest, my thought process was, well, one, I don't think I should have to, because it has been a problem for the past 3 years. And secondly, I don't think I need to anymore because I've got a new passion, and so the transition out, me handing my warrant card back wasn't probably that emotion that I thought it was going to be. Did I shed a tear? Yeah, I did, because it was 18 years of my life that I was very proud of, and I will never ever sit here and try and be negative on policing, because it's genuinely transformed my life, transformed me as a person, and I'm very proud to have served as a police officer. But you change, the job changes, and life changes, and sometimes you have to accept that.
And actually, it sounds like this chief inspector has probably done you a big favour in the longer term, because now you're no longer really attached to an organisation. You're free, in effect, to put all of your effort into growing your business and helping more people.
Yeah, and that ultimately, bizarrely, you're exactly right. It's probably given me the push, like my wife did 3.5 years ago, to do what was needed to be done. Me being able to walk away allows me to maybe have a little bit more freedom in what I do and when I do it and what I say. Not that I want my message to be bitter in any way, shape or form, because that's not what I'm about. I want my message to be positive, supportive and helpful, but also honest. And sadly, when you are a warranted police officer, you probably sometimes can't say what you really want to be able to say, because the system is far too big for you to be able to say it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Do you receive DMs from cops that are struggling? And if so, what are the most common themes that you hear?
All the time. One of the greatest things for me is when you get somebody take time out of their day to DM you and ask for advice, support. And I'd probably say on average, I probably get about 20 to 25 a week from officers right across the country.
Oh, wow.
And genuinely, superintendents, I've had assistant chief constables message me and DM me who are supportive of the work that I'm doing. I have had people message me, and the overwhelming common theme is burnout, welfare, not getting the support they need from the job, feeling like they aren't being supported in the way that they should be. Response officers kind of feeling like they are being let down massively. Officers struggling to create control in their lives. One big thing that comes up a lot is that officers join and you go through your training and we get told about policy, we get told about procedure, how to arrest people, how to write your statements, which is really important. But what we don't probably get told about enough, because some forces do better than others and there is some good work out there that's being done, but the overwhelming theme is that we don't get shown how to look after ourselves around the shifts. And for me, it's one of the biggest mistakes that policing makes, because it's like basically saying to people, go out and just see how you get on. And when you are feeling like you're being let down and maybe you're not getting that support that you need and you're not getting probably as well paid as what you could elsewhere, and you're also giving the people the option to get a degree, why on earth would anybody stay in it? If you aren't feeling the support that you need and you feel like you're sinking and you're looking in the mirror and that person that joined that used to be happy, who used to have control of their life, who was as fit as a fiddle, and then you look at yourself in the mirror 3 years later and you're like, well, hang on a second, this job's completely taken over my life. It's taken over my health, my well-being. I'm not getting as well paid as what I thought. The recruitment that I believe that I was coming into probably didn't paint the right picture, because there's a lot of challenges that they haven't told me about, and I didn't get that kind of support in my initial training to know how to cope around the shift pattern. Why would I stay? And that, in my opinion, is something that we should throw in. I've spoken to forces right across the world, places in America, places in believe it or not, Spain and other European countries. They focus on it because they realise the challenges that you're going to face. But for some reason in the UK, we kind of feel like, I mean, some forces might do better than others, but doing a day, telling people on how to do it. But we've got 22 weeks here of training. So we're saying that we can only dedicate a day or even 2 days or even 3 over a 22-week period on how to help people look after their health and well-being. And the job might turn around and say, well, that's on you. No, it's not. It's on you, because you're the employer, and you know that retention's a real problem, and we know, based on the people that are leaving, that they're not leaving because they're not really good police officers. They're leaving because they feel let down by the organisation. So if you're really serious about health and well-being, and when that well-being, like I said earlier, is a big word and it covers a lot of things, but don't sit there and try and suggest that it has to be all on the officers.
So do you think poor leadership is one of the biggest threats to officers' well-being today?
Yeah, I do, and it pains me to say it, because what I don't want people to think is that I'm saying that every leader's poor. They're not. There's some amazing police leaders out there that genuinely want to do the right thing. The problem that you've got is the system's too big to allow it, and that's the problem. You can have the best intentions in the world, but if you haven't got the support around you and you haven't got the systems around you to allow you to do it, it falls on deaf ears. And I think, sadly, the way that policing is going now, I mean, the Met have just cut their wellbeing staff for BCUs. So they used to be there, and now they're not. And that highlights to me, and probably to the officers in the Met, your well-being and your welfare is not a concern to us. That's exactly what it says. Whether the wellbeing teams were good, whether the officers felt they were useful, that's not a reason to cut them. That's, if anything, if they're not where they need to be, that's a reason to invest further.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, we can't justify things by saying, well, it's not working. We need to understand the reasons why it's not working and think to ourselves, well, how can we make it better? Not remove it completely, and certainly not spend money on areas of policing that aren't going to be ploughed back into the front line. And I think, sadly, that is where leadership is at the minute. We've probably got police leaders that want to do things, but a lot of the time, as we both know, you're thinking about your next promotion. And that's what happens, you know. We have to think, and I don't blame the leaders for this, because you come into policing to get the best out of it for you. But I think the moment you go into an SLT role, you've also got to remember where you come from, and you've also got to remember that you're there to probably help the officers underneath you as well. But I think that message gets forgotten because it's probably not on their remit.
Yeah, and I speak to friends in policing a lot about this. It's almost as if you get to the rank of chief inspector, you're constantly looking up.
Yeah.
At your next promotion, effectively.
Yeah.
Whereas inspector and below tend to be looking down at the people that are the most important to the organisation.
Prime example of this is just before I left West Mids, I was in talks to go into West Mids as Blue Dot Lifestyle to do a day on wellbeing for the officers that were just about to go out. So we could actually try and reinforce some good habits into people so they don't feel like they're sinking. And there was obviously a cost involved in it because I couldn't do it as a PC because it goes against my business interest. So as a business, there has to be a cost element to it. So we put the business case in, and that was based on what I know they were paying other external agencies coming in, and I actually undercut them, by the way. And the chief inspector that sent the email that created the whole stuff was the one that said, no, we're going to explore internal well-being options when we know that there was none, or certainly nothing that was relatable enough to get the officers what they need. Do I blame that chief inspector? No. And the reason why I don't is because they're looking at it from a budget perspective. Because they're looking at it and thinking, well, hang on a second, do we pay somebody externally when we've got internal options that could do it? But my argument would always be, well, if those internal options have always been there, why have they not hit the mark so far? And I would argue the fact that it's just a lack of relatability. As police officers, I think you relate to people that have been there and done it. And if you've got somebody that has never walked a mile in your shoes, it's very difficult to take on board what they're saying. Not because you don't get behind what they're talking about, it's because you probably just don't see it as being something you can get behind. But I think what we tend to forget is that you've got to speculate to accumulate. Put a tiny bit of money in now and save yourself thousands potentially from somebody actually putting some really good habits in that saves them from sinking and walking away, and you wasting all your money you've spent on recruitment. But policing doesn't see it like that. We see it as, well, I've saved some money here, so that's going to look good for me when I potentially go for my next board. And I genuinely believe that is what tends to happen, rather than looking at the bigger picture.
So you're now full-time with Blue Light Lifestyle, which is great, but you've also got a podcast, haven't you? Blue Lights and Spaghetti Hoops.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Well, that came about mainly because, I mean, the name is all down to the fact that I did a reel, and I don't know where it came from, I don't know why I thought about it, but I thought about spaghetti hoops, and I mentioned it in one of my reels about firefighters eating spaghetti hoops. I had no idea. I don't think they do. I don't think it's a thing. But
Careful, you might get another complaint.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. But I said it, and then I started to get firefighters message me and go, spaghetti hoops. And then I was turning up for jobs at work, and firefighters were coming to me and going, spaghetti hoops. And then I met another online coach called Chris Ward, who runs a business that, again, supports emergency service workers, but primarily firefighters. Great guy. And we kind of got together, and I said, look, should we do a podcast? Something to kind of help and support emergency service workers, talk about the issues that maybe, are ongoing, help people with their health and the well-being. He was like, yeah. And we were like, what should we call it? And I thought, well, my business is called Blue Light Lifestyle, so Blue Lights, and you're a firefighter, and you eat spaghetti hoops. And we kind of put it together, and that's where it came from.
That's so funny.
So that's quite. But the feedback's been really good from it. We've had some really nice feedback, and I think what is really interesting for me is when people drop you a message and say, I was on the way to work and I was listening to your podcast. That's a really nice feeling, that is. So yeah, I've really enjoyed doing that as well. I think podcasting's a really great way to kind of get to know people and to get your message across, and I've really enjoyed doing it.
Where can people find your podcast?
At the minute, it's on Spotify. We will be going into, other platforms, but at the minute, it is on Spotify. So if you put Blue Lights to Spaghetti Hoops in, you'll be able to get the episodes that we've done so far. And we are looking, to just like yourself, really, to get people on that, we feel like, hopefully I've added a little bit of value to yours. Hopefully we can get people on that add value to ours, which is always, in my opinion, what it's all about.
Are you open to going back to policing one day, or do you think that chapter is closed for good?
I think it's done. I didn't really have to think about that either. A few people have messaged me and said, would you consider coming back as a special? And I understand the reasons why people say that, to be honest, because, to keep your hand in a little bit. But my thing has always been, you make a decision based on a number of factors, and my decision's been made based on the fact that I probably don't want to do nights anymore. I don't want to have the scrutiny of what policing currently is, and I want to be present for my two boys as much as I possibly can. And I genuinely believe that I can give more value to police officers and police staff members right across the country doing what I do now than I ever can as a PC. The moment you go back as a warranted officer, the moment you're back under the microscope, and I could go to a different force, but their professional standards department might look at it differently to what Westmeads did. Westmeads were fantastic, by the way, for 3.5 years, and they weren't particularly bad at the end, to be honest. It was just a case of they wanted me to resubmit something that had never been a problem before, which I thought was bizarre. And we both.
And the likelihood is that would not have been approved.
No, and that was my thing. You see, the reason why it's going to be resubmitted is because there's going to be a problem probably second time round, of course. And I wasn't naive enough to think, and that's why I didn't want to do it. There were certain people in policing that were saying to me, yeah, do that. And I was like, look, I want to end my police career not by having an argument with professional standards. I want to finish my police career on my terms and actually walk away with. You're looking back on it positively, because there was some amazing times in policing. I met some amazing people, and do I think it could and should be the best job in the world? 1,000,000%. You're always going to get bad apples in policing. You will, because that's the part of every profession. And sadly, in policing, when you get a news story, social media can portray a story, and it can really go and it can spread like wildfire about negativity. But I can honestly put my hand on my heart and say that the people that I work with were some of the best people I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. And the officers go out there every single day and they're trying their best in really tough circumstances to do a really, really tough job that I don't think a lot of people can do or not a lot of people want to do. And that should be really commended, in my opinion.
I think you've done the right thing in leaving, and I think you're doing a great job in helping people in the job, because who else have they got? Where can people find you online if they want to speak to you further about Blue Light Lifestyle? So
we've got bluelight_lifestyle on Instagram. All you need to do, we've got a linked in contact link that you can click on, and it will come through, and you can just contact us and we'll get back to you. We've also got some free resources on there, a shift survival guide, which is completely free for you to download. I also do I call it the Blue Briefing, every Sunday at 4 p.m. If you would like to get my thoughts on various different things on policing, emergency service world, some tips, hints how to get more out your lifestyle, I do that every Sunday at 4 p.m. All you need to do is subscribe to it, and it'll get sent through to you. And we've also got the link for Blue Lights and Spaghetti Hoops on there as well. So that's in the bio on my Instagram. And I'm also on LinkedIn. I am on TikTok, but if I'm honest with you, I'm probably not consistent enough on it. And that's probably my bad, really. But what I don't want to do is take too much on. I want to try and be as consistent as I can on the different platforms. LinkedIn is Ian Cook, and people can... I'm a little bit more talk about policing and what I think we can do better on LinkedIn. It's a little bit more written and a little bit more thought-provoking than maybe some of the stuff on Instagram. So it's a different perspective on me and a different perspective on Blue Light Lifestyle.
So what's next for you then?
Well, I mean, it's going to continue to keep trying to build Blue Light Lifestyle. And what that looks like for me is to continue to keep helping people inside our one-to-one. And to continue to keep trying to put free resources out for people to keep getting better and better. I am kind of continue to keep building the podcast. I'm speaking at the Superintendents Association in September. I'm also looking to do collaborations with a couple of YouTubers. Not that I'm going to be on YouTube, but to also get, my message out there a little bit further. And I also want to try and build a blue light community, something that I think is missing. We've got an awful lot of police forces right across the country. We've also got an awful lot of other emergency service workers, and I would like to try and bring us all together, whereby we can have a space whereby we can have a little bit of banter, get guest speakers in, help with various different factors such as your promotion, leaving the job, helping you with various different things that go on inside the job, looking at maybe going for different roles, getting live trainings in there to really help people build and be part of something that they can believe in. The one big thing about the one-to-one is that we've got a great community, and that's the one thing that's really inspired me. I think emergency service workers, police officers like to be around other people because we get each other, and I think building a community like that it's a real passion, something I really want to try and get across.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. As a result, you coming on the podcast, you're going to get one of these in the post.
That is absolutely, I love that, by the way. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much. Well, genuine pleasure, mate. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks again for coming on, and we'll speak soon.
Thank you, mate. Cheers. Thank you very much.